Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday-ish, it's Warhammer. Yes, do not adjust the horizontal or the vertical. It might be Thursday, but it's still Wednesday here in our hearts. I apologize, everybody, that we were not able to put this out on Wednesday. You can blame travel and planes and things like that. But here we are. We're not going to miss a week. Don't worry. We're here bringing you all the normal Warhammer mediocrity that we deliver every week. We're going to continue delivering this week. So, joining me this week, as always, it's my co-host, Tom, my one and only this week. How you doing, Tom?
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
It's good to have you, Tom. We do not have a guest this week because I didn't even know if we were going to be able to do the show tonight, given crazy travel stuff. But here we are. So it's just going to be Tom and I decided what a fun chance for us to strap on our tinfoil hats and talk about the future of AOS. That's right. It's going to be crazy prediction time. We all know Tom loves to swing for the fences, and that I am reticent to do so because it's easy to be, way off and wrong. And most of the time when you predict, you're wrong, including Tom, who's wrong far more than he's right. But that's okay.
Hey, let me point out. Wait, no. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I was right about the identity of the man in the iron mask in Flash for the Flash finale.
Well,
and I think, and I think I also just called out the identity of the three-eyed raven in Game of Thrones. Just saying.
I think I'm right about something I'm predicting. Yeah, no. Well, good for you. Yeah. You're right way more than you're wrong. You just choose to forget the wrong predictions. Those don't register. It's called survivor bias. Look it up. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about how wrong we're going to inevitably be. We're here to talk about all the crazy predictions we're going to make. But first, of course, as always, the news. Tom, what do we got this week?
So the big thing this week is let me start with what's arriving this week. We have a bunch of new basing bases for 40K with a bunch of materials and stuff like that. It's pretty awesome.
I've got some screenshots. I'll share it up.
Yeah, go ahead. It seemed like it was right up your alley, Vince. When I saw it, I was like, man, who wants junk on their bases? That guy.
I want junk on my bases. My only issue is so much of it's very sci-fi, but I want to see them release this pack, like a similar pack for Age of Sigmar, right? Like that's what I'm in.
Age of Sigmar ruins and doors and all that other stuff that you want on your bases.
Exactly. Yeah. Basically, look, Steve Wren posted in the PMP today his dragon, and it was beautiful. He had stuff all over the base. There was like a Stormcast shield. There was part of the little flagellant box set. There was skulls, and it was beautiful. That's how a base should look right there. Yeah, you can see here's some junk. Here's some stuff.
Like you could do that door maybe. Like I don't know, is that standing up? Is that what base is that going on? That's what I want to know. Is that a 130 round?
It's who knows? Who knows how big that is? But yeah, there's a couple here that could still be valid. Like this could work in Age of Sigmar. The rubble pieces that are undoubtedly there for like vents and sewer grates. Probably not.
The semi Triforce-esque Hawk.
Yeah. But I mean, this is fine. Just a priest with a weird halo. That's all good. And then you mentioned the paints.
That's new paint. Yes. Let me just say, there's some good stuff here. Man, I'm always down for some more technical paints.
Yeah, I've got lots of thoughts on this. So first of all, we've got the 3 new layer metal paints. I'm guessing these are replacing some of the existing metal paints because they're kind of garbage. Not that I think we all know I'm not a huge fan of more or less any Citadel paint and find them to be in general subpar. Outside of the technical range and the shade range, those are both quite valuable. But hey, maybe these new metal layer paints are less garbage, but I doubt it. 90% of all metal paints are garbage. 98% of all metal paints are garbage. So there we are.
Tell me how you really feel, Vince.
There are 2 good metallic paints on the market. That is how I feel. 2 out of all of them. If you're using any but those 2, you have chosen poorly. You're using the wrong metal paint, and I will identify your shitty metal paint from a mile away in a picture. I know it when I see it. That's how I really feel. You want to know how I feel, Tom? That's how I feel. I can spot bad metal paint like a fart in church. Okay, it's evident. That's how I feel.
What I find so humorous about this is the fact that just how negative you are about this, Vince. I thought everybody is welcome to their aesthetic opinion.
They are. Absolutely. But if you really love metal paints that aren't these two, you're wrong, and there's something wrong in your brain. That's what I'm telling you.
Awesome. Do we have that for the record? Great.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Moving on. So I'm looking forward to these gemstone paints. I don't know what how I'm gonna use them yet. I can't imagine that they're actually gonna be able to reflect like the color transition stuff. Like I don't know how you would pull that off.
Yeah, agreed. These blow my mind. Like the way that they were explained to me when I was reading about them was that they're meant to go over metallic paint, and so then they look like a gem when you put the gemstone paint.
Oh.
Is meant to go over like a metallic, and it makes the metallic look like a gem because it sort of has that inner glow. My problem with that is like painting gems is the reverse of normal highlighting, right? You have to, because gems are technically translucent, light travels through them. So that's why you reverse the highlights. But I can't imagine a paint would do that. Like I don't know how they're going to look. That being said, I'm pretty excited for these because, I think they're going to be sweet for doing those like glossy red, like for getting that super sheen red metal, right? You want to do like an enameled colored metal or like a sword reflecting a color. I think these are going to be super sweet for that. So we'll see. I'm definitely going to pick up all three of these and I'll do a product review. I'll play around with them a bunch in one day and then do a product review when they come out. So
definitely. So let me ask, so what do you think those gloss shades are for?
Yeah, because I have an answer for this. I appreciate the setup. All right. So, I was about to reach for something, but and then I realized my camera's not on. There is a set of inks I'm a big fan of from Scale 75 called Inktensity. And I use it to shade metal because even the shadows of metal are still reflective and glossy to light. Their metal isn't dull unless it's old, right, or worn. So even metal out of light is still reflective. Like if you take, you're wearing a wedding ring, right? If you hold that up to the light, even the parts that are darker are still reflective. So I use, and those inks, the Inktensity set is glossy. So I use that to shade metal to keep the gloss reflection, even in the darker shadows. I think it's no coincidence that they're releasing these 3 gloss paints that would all shade metal. Like Nuln, Reichland, and Agrax are their 3 favorite colors to shade gold and steel, right? And they happen to be releasing the new layer paints of gold and steel at the same time. So my guess is you're going to see Duncan on the screen like the day after these come out with a tutorial saying like, here's how you use the gloss paints. I can't do the UK accent, but here's how you use the gloss paints to get properly shaded metal. You will see that thing. And I agree with him because dull shades always just made your metal look old. That's all it did. There you go.
Cool. I'm down. What else do we have? So the dropping this week also is the 4 hero set for Warhammer Quest. I just got my box for keeps that I'm keeping today. As a brief shout out, they have not asked me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. I ordered my box from Frontline Gaming, and they really hooked me up this time. I got a bunch of extra goodies in the box, and again, it was all unprompted. And so, if you guys are looking for an online retailer, I at least suggest having you check out Frontline Gaming. So they've treated me good. So I got my box today. I've been putting them together. I'm looking forward to the 4 hero set dropping this week. Technically, it's 5 heroes because it's either of the Stormcast. There's War Scrolls or there's hero cards for both of them in the app. For those that are interested, even though they said there are, like, if you read the statement on it, it says there are rules for these heroes. It does not say there are rules in the box for these heroes. So just a heads up, it does not sound like there are cards coming with these heroes.
Oh, like the actual Silver Tower cards?
Yes, there are no Silver Tower cards. like those hero cards are in the back of your book, your Silver Tower book, to like photocopy and print. They are not going to be in the box. So if you were expecting that, don't be disappointed, or be disappointed, but just understand what you're getting. If you picked up one of the foil card packs, likely you will already have those 4 cards then.
Yeah, that Knight Venator is a beast. He's a beast. All right, continue.
Yeah, you said that you've gotten some experience with him.
Yeah, we got a game in last. Saturday. I mean, like we just proxied most of the minis because I didn't have most everything together, but I had like all the heroes, and it was tremendous fun. We ran Chamon, Shamon, the Michael Jackson song one for the Plane of Metal, whatever. And yeah, it was super fun. And that Knight Venator is just a monster. He's an absolute monster in there. Like not that the other characters were bad. Like everybody felt like they had a role. It was really fun. I had a super good time. I really, not only is the game full of some of the best minis I've seen in a long time, for my personal aesthetic. Not that Games Workshop's been missing on recent models. It's just they haven't appealed to me personally. But
right.
I love these minis, but also the game is super fun. If you like that style of board game, like if you played the recent, say, like D&D style board games, right, where you're laying down the tiles and stuff like that, it's the same sort of style.
Yep, and I have not gotten into it yet because I've been putting mine together. But I've read through some of the rules, and I've actually been working on. Well, I'll show some of that during hobby time. But I've been plugging away at some of the ancillary rules from the hero cards, from the expansion stuff. And there's gold, and then their expansion cards. That's what I'll say.
Oh yeah.
So, yep. So as you said with the Knight Venator, like just a beast. So yeah, so that's coming this weekend. We also I caught wind of a rumor that before the end of the year we will have 4 more collections of 4 more heroes. So 4 more boxes in the next 7 months.
That seems reasonable enough.
Yeah, I'm going to put my 2 cents. This is pure tinfoil hatting. Since we're not doing tinfoil hatting for Silver Tower come later on, I'm going to add this now.
Sure.
I suspect that we will have a heavy concentration of Stormcast Eternal, the Stormcast Eternal, the Khorne heroes, and the Oryx. Like in those next 4 boxes, there will be a strong mix of those with maybe the occasional other hero mixed in. But just because of the concentrations, both from the expansion cards and also those are the new factions. So those are the most, they want to push those and they want to cross promote. And I think and we've actually seen that in this most recent box. We have 1 of each of those heroes and then an outer prince, Tzeentch Sorcerer. I think that we will continue to see heavy concentrations of those 3 factions moving forward in these boxes.
I mean, here's what I'll say. I don't know how right you are, but to a point, you almost certainly have to be right.
Yeah.
By that, what I simply mean is, like, if you look in the app, like, you can pull down the app now, right? Because that released as well.
Yep.
And when you look at the hero pack, there's a ton of Khorne and Stormcast heroes in there. Now, there's lots of heroes from across the various factions.
And Fireslayer.
Yes. But it's definitely weighted toward, like, Khorne, Stormcast, and the Fireslayers.
Yeah.
So I think they'll keep popping up to some degree. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw 1 or 2 in every box, right?
Oh, I'm anticipating of those 4 factions, there will be at least 2, more often 3 of those 4 factions. But we'll see.
I mean, that's where you're pushing it beyond what I would tolerate, but who knows?
Yeah. And then supposedly, come Christmas, we are going to have another box drop, an undead box.
Which seems pretty awesome. All undead characters, I assume?
I don't know. Probably not. I would guess that it's just something on the Shyish plane, and I think you're fighting predominantly undead, vampire count, flesh eater. Like, that's what I would anticipate. Because you're fighting.
So you're talking like a totally new enemy pack, like the old Hero Quest expansions that added new monsters and stuff.
Well, no, this would be Warhammer Quest, the Graveyards of Shyish, or something like that. Like an actual box, like another box, another game with an additional number of heroes.
Like
And
this 2.0.
That 2.0, yeah.
Gotcha.
That's what they're talking come Christmas for the holiday.
Super sweet. I dig it.
So yeah, that may be maybe sooner rather than later, and I think that's pretty fantastic. Yeah, we'll have to do a review of Silver Tower at some point. We've kind of talked about some of our strengths and weaknesses that we've seen. We'll have to do a special show on that. Other things this week, the small Silver Tower errata dropped, which was awesome to see. Just the responsiveness from GW, immediately with the product release. I was super happy with that. And then obviously the full PDF set for the Silver Tower minis dropped as well this week. So for those that have not picked up the 2 Dragon magazine or the 2 White Dwarf magazines, sorry, you can download the full set of War Scrolls on the PDF format. And so yeah. So and then I had another source reach out to me recently with some potential Warhammer exclusive news. I'm not take this with a healthy bit of salt. This is the first time that I've caught wind of this, but they have an inside contact, and it's someone that I know, so I'm gonna at least trust their judgment in this. But one of the bits of news that they shared with me is that with the upcoming book this summer that we had anticipated, we had kind of read the elves as being merged fully with the Sylvaneth, and what it's seeming to be implied coming out, or what they've suggested, is that there's going to be 2 battle tomes coming this summer, faction-wise. One is going to be the Sylvaneth, and another is going to be a Wanderer book.
Nice. So do you think it's specifically like Wanderer, like they'll have the same thing? Or do you think there'll be a new sub-faction sort of within the Wanderers, much like Iron Jaws are within, Orcs or whatever?
I have no idea. Like this caught me. This blindsided me when they said that there's actually going to be 2 books. Because I don't know what to make of it. Like my anticipation was that we were going to get a bunch of elves with the Sylvaneth keyword, and it seems that I don't know. But I'm reporting it. So I don't know. I suspect that we may get a book. I think that if we do get this, we didn't get a Sylvaneth book previously. I suspect we would get a handful of boxes, and maybe they share the elves in the Sylvaneth and maybe the Wanderer keyword. Maybe this is the first time that we see a keyword crossover. So that they have they're playing in multiple camps, like multiple subtypes. And then maybe there's not a hard division between the factions in releases. So you may get some of both with the summer release. I honestly don't know. Yeah.
Well, I'll say definitely that I'm excited for this one. The trees were, as I mentioned before, to me, the trees were the strong release, right? I never liked the elf aesthetic much. Seeing more crossover with that. If the models come out looking anything like the art, like Alariel on the giant beetle or whatever, and the half elf, half sort of dryad stuff, I think this is going to be a pretty banging release. So I'm all for it. And I wouldn't mind seeing, I wouldn't mind seeing, I just want the Slaneshi stuff and the Shadow Elf stuff, the Lugu. I just want to see them, the Gugu elves, come out right on the back of that. Yeah.
No, and that'll be good. That'll be good. The other piece of news that I got was that there was an international international training of 400 GW folk, like store managers and whatnot, over in the UK, or not in the UK. It was actually elsewhere in Europe, but and that there was some testing this last weekend using starter boxes for the General's book to put the finishing touches on it. So They are getting final feedback and tweaks basically going in. I think it was testing out the point system. So, yeah.
Nice. You know, the head of there was a similar conference in North America this last week, and the head of GW North America basically said, was quoted as saying like something to the effect of, we've started to dip our toe, back in the marketing and communication waters, but we haven't done enough yet, and we want to go farther.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was very encouraging, and I very much liked seeing that quote, because I think they have made some big strides and some big outreach in the community. So I say more of it. And also, I invite the head of GW North America to come on the show anytime you want. I know you're watching. So you want to continue that outreach and marketing right here. Come on the show, be a guest. It'll be a grand old time.
We'll do some interviews. If you want us to do product reviews, you can send us advanced copies of boxes that come, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. More than happy to. Yes, I'll spruik for it if you send it to me for free. I don't mind at all. There was one other piece of news that's very big that we'd be remiss if we didn't mention, Tom. And it's funny because I don't think either of us, we're not going to have anything intelligent to say about it, but we would be remiss if we didn't mention it. And that's, Total War Warhammer dropped this week, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people are playing it. It's all over the GW website. It's at my GW store. There's like a stack of like postcards or like, take this, go play this game. No, I have not picked it up because I'm in some of my like exam prep testing stuff. I'm not dumb enough to pick up a video game right now.
Sure. Generally, when you're trying to get your PhD and in the final steps of like a very important test along that path, it would be a bad idea to just lose weeks of your life into a video game. Yeah.
Yep. So I held off on that one. But I will be picking it up, and I'm looking forward to playing it. So I am looking forward to getting back into the old world.
Well, you'll have to tell me how it is. So, because I have nothing against it. I don't care. I can't be bothered, and it would take away from miniature painting, and I'm too busy. And I don't know. Pick your 10 favorite excuses, and those are the ones I like. It looks super cool. I mean, no doubt about it. It looks super awesome, but it's just not my type of thing. So, as I said, I'm sorry we don't have anything intelligent to say about it, but it does look awesome. I'll say that much. And for those of you obviously thirsting for a taste of the old world, this will be as an oasis in the desert of Sigmar. So there you go. You can get right back to your fluffy pantaloons and other assorted aesthetics without issue. There you go.
True.
The fluffy pantaloons will be en masse, just everywhere.
And that's news.
There you go. All right, Tom. So you know what that means. If the news is done, it's time for your pick of the week, Tom. So what have you got? What have you got to share with our audience this week?
So there was that table that we all drooled at a couple, over the last 6 months. We bumped into it a couple different times. Yes. The train tutor, I believe, had was it him, or was it somebody else that had done work on that table? That was that other individual. That wasn't the train tutor.
Correct. Terranscapes did a lot of the work.
Oh, Terranscapes. That's who it was.
Yeah, and Mel had talked about it when he was on the show.
Yeah. So there's a YouTube video that I stumbled upon that it's the owner of that table walking through the table.
Oh wow, that's super cool. Really?
Yeah. And what we didn't see, by the way, is the 100 pounds of cavern sets and catacomb sets that connect from that town down underground.
What?
Yeah.
Are you for real?
I am. He starts in the caverns and then he works back up to the actual, goes out through the catacombs, through the hillside, and onto that other area. Yeah.
What? Holy crap. I am excited for this video. Tom, this may be your best pick of the week ever.
And it's like an hour and 15 minutes.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I was expecting a 10-minute video of here's the table, here's the stuff. No, we're going.
No, it's like a narrative thing where he walks through these adventures, going through the dungeon and looking at the different areas of the dungeon and the inhabitants and everything.
Wow. That's crazy.
So that's coming. So the link is going to be posted below.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds super awesome. But that's great. I will watch that. I'm excited for that. As I said, this may be the first time you've ever shared something I wanted to watch, Tom.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Way to go. It only took you like 3 months. Mine is speaking of, it's funny that you mentioned a terrain-based thing, because mine was actually referencing Mel, the terrain tutor. So have you seen what Mel is doing this week?
No, I haven't.
He is doing this terrain tutor live build where he is building this massive table live and going through everything to do it all on Hangouts. And so his episode 1, like day 1, whatever you want to say, the live build came out yesterday, and it's 8 hours long. Like, he blew the Hangout time. Okay.
Wow.
And episode 2 went up today, and it's about 3.5 hours. So if you're interested in watching the full process from beginning to end, or you've got a lot of stuff to paint and you're like, you know what I want? I want hours of content. Go to the Terrain Tutors channel, check it out, watch this man work, because it is freaking impressive. And you get to see everything. I mean, like, you'll get it soup to nuts, right? The whole deal of what he's doing. And it's been pretty fantastic. And I mean, 2 days in, he's 11.5 hours of content. That's
fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So there you go. Talk about paint-a-sode type of that is a marathon paint-a-sode level of content delivery there. Okay, so I'll post the link for that down below. And like I said, I'll post to day 1, which is the 8-hour one, but you'll be able to you can go from there and watch all the days. But he's going to continue all week, so or all weekend. I'm not sure how many days it is total. 5, I think, is what he said. I'd have to. He had an intro video, but I don't remember the number of days. Anywho, so Tom, that brings us very quickly into hobby time. So what you working on?
Well, right now I'm putting together some of my Silver Tower stuff. I've been working on my Nurgle stuff on and off. My Glotkin is coming along. Hopefully in the next week or 2, I should be done with him. So I'm sorry, Mickey, your Glotkin is going to be much more beautiful than mine. I'm just going to probably get it done in 5% the time that you spent. So
hers will be similarly more like, well, it's all Nurgle, so it's all disgusting, but similarly at a higher level than yours. Yeah.
So if you want to see a beautiful Glotkin, see Mickey Jenver's forthcoming Glotkin.
Right.
If you want to see a nice tabletop job, come see mine. It'll be done in a week or 2. So I'm almost done with him. I'm moving on to and then the other thing I did this week in the last couple of days is I picked up the War Scrolls on the app. And I hate the app for the actual like play at the flipping through, like trying to figure out how I would use it as part of the game was frustrating to me. And so I spent my hobby time building all of the actual cards. And so I'll briefly show you guys what I've been working on. So,
well, and here's what I'll say about that. Like, you asked, why would you use it, or how do you use the app? The answer is in between games, Tom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because like you don't need it during the game.
Yeah, but like, what about your stats? Like, let's say I was playing a LOREMASTER. Like, all my stats are on the app. Like, I don't have the card in front of me for movement and attacks and all that stuff. Like, yeah, I'd have to have the phone open to use all of those things.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, I get the card being useful separate from the app. I'm saying that, like, the true value of the app and having it is the fact that you can take your LOREMASTER and say, he's got these treasure cards, he's got these skill cards, he's got these shards, from the tower, and you can save that.
You can also do that by taking a picture with your phone.
Yeah, you could, sure, but it's actually pretty sweet to be able to like attach those specific things and then have all the rules and everything there and not like try to read on your phone and be like, wait, which one was this? That was what we did. Like when we finished our game, everybody just flipped open their phone and we all recorded like what we had gotten in that game, because we didn't know if we're going to be able to play it this next weekend or 2 or 3 weeks from now. And, you know, stuff's going to move around on the game table, but now we knew we could save our game state and what we had done and what we had gotten.
Yeah. So anyways, so I went through and basically made apps or made scrolls for everybody. So
yeah, you did a good job too. They look nice.
Thanks. So, and they're all properly scaled. So when you cut it out, just the colored area, I should be able to laminate all of them, and it'll be pretty sexy.
I'm enjoying the art you've chosen, in that I love that. Can we scan back a little bit here? Let's back this up, because you've used like the real art for a lot of this stuff, or you know, something close to it. But then we go back to the Lord of Chaos, where you were like, which Lord of Chaos should I choose? How about that guy? How about the Knight of the Chaos Warrior or whatever he was of Tzeentch out of War, right? That's what that is.
Oh yeah, like a bunch of my art will reflect my the Warhammer Online influences. Like I have the Sorceress. Like I went straight for the Sorceress. I made a proxy for the. This is another art piece from Warhammer Online. I made a proxy. That was another piece that never made it into Warhammer Online. But using the Necromancer stats, this is basically identical to Necromancer, but so I can do Tomb Kings if I want. Thing for Witch Hunter using the Airloft hero, like the Nomad whatever. Because what he was doing was similar to what the Witch Hunters would do. So yeah, so I did a fun So there's a lot of Warhammer Online stuff reflected, obviously, in my art choices. But then there's a bunch of dumb art pieces like all the corn stuff, which was just real hard to find good pieces for because all of them look the same. So yeah, there you go. It's Chaos Sorcerer Lord. I get a Magus from Warhammer Online. So then your blood.
I'm surprised you didn't just go find a picture of your chosen and use it as the
my chosen.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mention that because this Lord of Chaos is basically what my chosen looked like at the end when we stopped playing. So there you go. So yeah, basically because that's the sovereign armor right there. So the realm rank 80 or the renown rank 80. So. Yeah. Anyways,
way to humble brag, Tom.
You're welcome.
You're hilarious. All right. So yeah, no, it's super cool. And a lot of these dudes are, you know, obviously you have to pay for these individual heroes, or you can buy them, and you can either buy them individually or as a big bundle.
Which the bundle is like totally worth it in my opinion.
Especially with the cards like you've got, because then you could, you know, have the treasure cards in your in the thing. That's the only problem with it to me is I want the physical treasure and skill cards because you draw them right during the game, and like you can random.
Otherwise, you have to draw from a separate deck than everybody else is drawing.
Well, you can random them in the app, but sure.
Yep.
All right.
That's what I'm saying. Like than everybody else is because you're randoming them in the app.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, if they need to make like just a pack of those, like the physical.
How awesome would that be? Like, it's so disappointing that they haven't done that, which they may, but I don't think so. If I were to guess, like, I don't think that they'll do that.
Well, what a great segue, Tom, because what we're about to do is start guessing what they're going to do.
No, you need to do your.
My hobby time.
What have you been working on?
Oh man! All right, so I'm keeping my promise to Mel. I'm working on some scatter terrain on the CDs. It's back there. You can't really see it. It's not within reach. Sorry. I am gonna this weekend do the last piece for my spring skirmish challenge before Memorial Day, which is the Dawn Serpent for my Malifaux crew. And I am working on I'm doing these models individually for Silver Tower because I can just proxy everything pretty much. So I don't feel any real rush. So I want to do like the Zangor for a fantasy unit for competition. So I'm using this first one to get down my scheme. And so he's coming along. He's obviously not done yet, but he's in progress. And I really like how he's coming along. He looks like garbage right there on the screen. I can look at him and see he looks like crap. But I assure you in real life, he looks super fun. So
what are you going to do for your bases? Are you going to base all of them the same?
What are you asking me? Like, do you mean every monster?
Like all of your Silver Tower minis, are you basing them all the same, or are you going to base them differently?
I'll base them differently. The stuff that's monsters, I'll probably base as though they're walking around in the tower. Like I'll try to use some kind of, like I did for the for all the familiars that I finished. I finished my little 4-pack of familiars. Plowing, I would say I spent conservatively 20 or 25 hours on Tweak. That's probably fair. And I see the littlest
amount of time that you spent on him.
Yeah. Well, he's like this tall. He's like the size of the tip of your finger, right? Seems worth it. But he's a little Lord of Change. He's got to be, you know.
I love him. Like from the get go, I've loved him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that seems a bit excessive.
Nonsense. I call shenanigans. But they're all based on like a sort of mystic kind of like a concrete mystic terrain, right?
Yep.
So I'll probably keep most of the monsters on that kind of thing, so that they look appropriate in the tower. The heroes I'll probably base in the same. If I own the army, I'll probably base it in the same way, in a similar sort of way as to how I have the army based, right? So they can slot into that army and look appropriate. So, for example, like the Stormcast will just inherit my Stormcast basing and that kind of thing. So he'll be on like the Beastman bases.
Did you have like base inserts, like the micro art stuff?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually what I was actually looking at for my monsters. Was debating on whether I wanted to do the micro art, because some of those looked really sharp and looked very tower-esque.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually using the ones from Cool Mini or Not, but
yep,
space, similar thing. So, yep, exactly. Which both the micro art and the secret weapon and the Cool Mini or Not, all three of them you really couldn't go wrong with. They all do really great quality bases. I have some of each of them actually, but and all of them I think would be great choices for the Silver Tower, because they all have they all have either a rubble or a mystic or an arcane or something like that, where it feels pretty appropriate for the Silver Tower. I think you could even do there's a couple of them that do like a weird Tau SETI type of thing that I think could look apropos.
Yep.
So if you just colored it right, made it look like stone or mystic blue energy, whatever. Okay. So there you go. I got a lot of balls in the air. That's what I'll say right now. I'm juggling balls. But that should all be done soon. So, Tom, do you want to talk about the future of Age of Sigmar?
Do I ever?
All right. Strap on your tinfoil hats, folks, because it is time. It is time for Vince and Tom to predict the future of the Age of Sigmar. Here we go. Now, we've got a lot of questions as well. We're going to go through and just kind of touch on, a bunch of different stuff. And we'll probably, some of the questions were things I was already going to ask. But we're going to kind of move through this logically or semi-logically. But we're going to talk about the game itself, the individual factions, and then we'll get to some specific questions. All right. So let's start at the beginning, Tom.
Okay.
Age of Sigmar. Give me how does this game look a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Let's do that. Okay. Is Age of Sigmar still around? Is it going to be surviving, thriving in those time frames? And if no, what replaces it? If yes, what does it look like?
In the 1 to 3 year range, I think it will be alive. It will be thriving. It will be in the midst of what we've been doing. I'm guessing we'll have a campaign every year. If you'll notice, the God Beasts campaign realm book was the last of the Realm Gate series. And I suspect that we are going to see a rhythm of 3 campaign books a year, and each of the 3 books is going to be an entire campaign. And so I think that is going to be the kind of the default. So I think we'll get 1 campaign a year, and we'll explore these different areas and different aspects of the narrative will advance. I think that 5 years out, I think we'll be transitioning to a new edition of Age of Sigmar. I don't know that the name is going to change. It might. It could be Warhammer Age of Malarian. No, I don't know. So, I mean, I suspect that it'll stay Age of Sigmar. But I think that we'll move on to probably a new edition. I'm guessing that will be all round bases by then. I hate to even say, I hate to even talk like that. But I suspect that with between the round bases and the new scale, I think when we move to a new edition, in probably 5 years, we'll have transitioned fully into this kind of new world. And so like the measuring, so looking at the rules as they currently are, we measure from the weapon or the model because you can't measure from the base. In a world where you're doing rounds and squares, you can't measure from the base if you want pure like equality between the two. So you have to measure from the model. You have to say the base doesn't matter. I suspect that we will transition towards a new edition in 5 years that will be a measure from the base again, and it'll be all round basing again. And they'll basically have given an entire generation of models gap between before they kind of streamline. And we are seeing, whether we like it or not, we are seeing an increase in scale towards like a heroic 32. And I think that I think our Blight Kings and our Wrathmongers and our the new Warrior Priest, who basically standing next to any other person it looks like a 7-foot tall basketball player. He's a monster. Like, he's so huge compared to the other models. I think that these are going to be the new standard size mini come the new edition. Like, we'll be back into our what quote unquote normal scale is. And if people want to keep playing the old stuff, they can, but I think the proportions will be significantly different by that point. So that's where I see it at the 1, 3, and 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with most of what you said. That is to say, yes, I think it'll survive and thrive. The reality is they've had a lot of... They're going to have misses in this time period. Yep. Like, they will. Not everything's going to be Uruks and the Silver Tower, right? Like, the last 2 releases, you've got to admit, have been bonkers good, right? The Uruks made a bunch of people who hadn't really thought about playing orcs go out and buy a lot of orcs. And the Silver Tower, I mean, it has got to be one of their most popular products they've made in a long time.
No, like, let's not forget the Flesh Eaters. Like, the Flesh Eaters are dropped in the middle of this, and like, they are selling quite a bit. Like, I've seen a lot of people talking about starting Flesh Eater armies. Heck, sure. I've thought about starting one because like that was an appealing, like, self-contained concept to me, as opposed to like the vampire counts, which I never really got into, like the whole Gothic thing. But I could get into this like ghoul empire, sure. And so I think that was also a hit for me as well. So I mean, they've been batting well for the last couple months, is what I would say.
Yeah, and I just think we're seeing a lot of positive movement overall. So my feeling is, you know, you're going to see with depending on how they hit with like the elf release, these multiple elf releases will probably get what the Slaanesh release looks like. These are all like what's on the horizon is all a lot of very potentially popular releases, right? And they're hitting them fast and furious. They're selling, so it would seem to me, pretty well. And I mean, from just complete anecdotal evidence. But, you know, what does it look like in 5 years? Here's the thing about it. I don't know if you'll see a new edition, like you just said. Okay. Because I'm not sure that here's what I mean. I'm not sure that the need to cut that in the same way is going to exist.
It may not. But there are enough rules, kind of weird hiccups.
Yeah.
In the long term that I think are going to be a problem.
But I don't mean like nothing changes. I mean quite the opposite, actually. What I mean is through things like the General's Compendium, they can just slowly bend the game. Right? As opposed to needing to hit like an edition change and like hard left, they can just slowly veer left, right? They could like release these books, slowly put out new ways to play. You know, they could have a book that's like new open play rules and, you know, this and that, right? And they start including this new 4-page thing and it updates in the app. And like, there was never really an edition change, but things changed, right? My point is instead of flash frying, they could just boil the frog. Does that make sense?
Right. They've never done that. They might. They've never done that or done it successfully. So,
right. But obviously, if anything, this past year should have been a lesson in black swans, right? Like,
yes, certainly. Yep.
Yeah. Using the past as a predictor for future behavior. If you bet on anything in the past year using the past as a predictor, you were wrong. Like,
that's true.
Yeah. So, like that's what I'll say. I don't know that there's a new edition as much as this. If you looked at the game, how it would be played 5 years from now, right? And you look at like what's on the table, or you look at like the success of the game, you look at what's on the average table, you look at the rules that are being employed, you look at that and go, you stop and you go, okay, let's ignore everything that happened in between, 2020 and this moment. And you look back at 2015 at July and you compare those two dates, I think you'd see a wide delta, right? But trying to put your finger on the individual moment of the big change might be a little tougher. That's my suspicion. Because I think if anything, like the big edition changes have always been a point of bleed, right? It's always been the point where like people got off the boat. So if they could dodge that by just sort of slowly twisting and bending the rules and updating in apps and stuff like that, they could dodge a lot of that and just have the normal amount of attrition. Let's say, my guess is their normal attrition rate's probably something on the magnitude of 20% per year, right? Of like active purchasers, buyers who like, you bought something in the last year, you didn't buy anything in this year.
I think the turnover is probably higher than that.
I don't think so. I really don't. Because I'm counting, all I'm saying is you're holding equal in the hobby. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like you bought 2 kits this year. You buy 2 kits next year. That's not a bleed. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. No, I do.
I'm saying you bought 2 kits this year, bought 0 next year. You're out. You sold all your armies. I don't think it's probably, it might be. I don't know. But my suspicion is it's not too
I'm
much
saying
higher
from
than that.
new growth, from a new growth standpoint, a lot of people get into this hobby not knowing what it is. Does that make sense? Like a lot of people blitz in, buy a bunch of stuff, and then they have a retention of 6 months.
Very short, yeah.
Yeah.
Super fair.
And the reason why I say this is I can see that on the turnovers on eBay. Like you can tell, I can see new collections when somebody's just trying to get out of the hobby. They got in, they started, they painted a couple models, and they're out. And I see that a lot.
So you're right. So let me switch out of my thing and say people who make it past the first year actively playing, right? To where you're in, that's where you get that more stable bleed off rate. But I agree with you. At that initial 6 months to a year, right? It can be easy to just be like, oh my God, I need all of this right now. I'm done. Right? Like we have all done that with a game. Right? Whether or not it was Warhammer. Sure you don't. The remnants of dead games on the shelves to your right. I know what's there. So
it's true.
Yeah. All right. So that's kind of where we think that and I think I'll be interested. For all these predictions, by the way, I want to know what all of you think. So make sure you leave your comments down below as to where you think we're crazy or what your own predictions are. I'm very interested. And then we can come back to this video as a historical artifact in a year or two and see how wrong we all are. And if you think I won't, you're wrong, because I came back to all the rumors before. I spent hours digging through every old rumor and pulling them together to see how wrong we were. And shut up, Tom. They were wrong.
We did a rules show. And we were largely right on the rules show.
Sure. No, I meant like the rumor show.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's turn to some individual factions. Okay. This should be fun. Here we go. Let's start with the order.
We're moving into pure speculation at this point.
Yes. In fact, I want to change. I'm sorry. I'm starting with the wrong one. Let's start with the one that to me is very interesting. What is happening with death, Tom? What do you predict the future of Age of Sigmar holds for the death faction? This is a tough one. We're starting on a tough one.
I have no effing clue.
Right, because let's set the level here. What I think the reason you're saying that, and I agree with you, this is challenging, is because death seems so done, right? Like we had that Flesh Eater thing that happened. I guess you could see maybe like a ghost release somewhere, like so maybe some kind of alternate ghost thing going on.
No. We will not see a ghost because we have a starter box. You got to remember that the starter box.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yep.
In general, have been for armies that are not getting updated.
Yeah. So like death seems so complete. you've got this one guy in charge of everything, right? The faction is there. I don't know what it's missing.
So if we do something that's not new, like fully new, and what I mean by that is like balls to the wall, like something that that is playing with what is currently there. Okay. And what I don't mean by this is like re-releasing old kits. I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about from the lore itself, assuming we're not bringing back Tomb Kings.
Right, which, much as I would love it, is probably not going to happen.
Not soon. What I would anticipate is I would see a Lamnia release of all, so the kingdoms based on the Mortarks.
So you're saying like Archon already got his box because he got his Rattle Skeleton Legion.
Yep.
And so then we'll see Neferata's and possibly Manfred's, like whatever their little legion looks like, right?
Yeah, whatever their kingdom looks like. And like the Neferatas, I would expect an actual new set of releases with a bunch of female vampires and a bunch of like seductress stuff, and so yeah, like that would be a whole package. And if they wanted to even do a start collecting box, they could do that with. It's unlikely because you could pull the other two kits and bring in the Coven Throne and bring in the Neferata. Yeah, I don't know. Like that's where I would see them going. If I were designing, I would latch onto something that is currently there that's undeveloped. So like that's, for example, what we saw with the Iron Claw,
the Iron Jaws.
The Iron Jaws. That's exactly. We had two units. We had a unit and we had a hero, and we had a named hero. And what they did was they took what was there and they expanded it into its own complete aesthetic. Right. And what I would anticipate is we see something where they take the Coven Throne and Neferata and expand it into its own complete aesthetic.
All right. Here's my prediction. I think this is what has to happen with Death. Okay.
Okay. There needs to be a civil war.
Well, yeah, to a point. Like, I think they'll keep Nagash around for a while, but the realms are big enough because who knows how big they are. They're infinitely big for all intents and purposes, right?
Yep.
For a narrative purpose, they're infinitely big. I think you're going to see a complete new Death subfaction. And by that, I mean a new kind of dead. Okay? And I'm not talking like the Return of the Tomb Kings. What you've got to do, you're going to have a new form of dead that are immune to Nagash's control. They're dead in a different way or something, right? Imbued with some spark of something, half dead. I don't care. Whatever it is. I don't know on that. But they'll pick some kind of like MacGuffin death, right? That makes them uniquely dead. And they themselves will be a complete new faction. Almost dead. Is that what you're saying? Yes, they're mostly dead.
Mostly dead.
Yes. And that's what you've got to see, because the fact is that faction is too hegemonic. It's got to get spiced up. And the only way we do that is by getting some new force in there that's sort of...
You're saying they're more Order-esque than Order?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, because they're all in line. Everybody's like, Manfred's off doing his own BS, but he's just Manfred, right? And in the end, he doesn't pose any real challenge to Nagash. Yeah. You know, so he's just being himself, just being kind of douchey in the story. But what we need is like a true potent, you know, sort of equal to come in and bust up the status quo, right? To me, it's like what they did with SWTOR, right? Where they had the two sides just kind of locked together, the Republic and the Sith or whatever in this battle. Yep. And so in the most recent expansion, what they do, they brought in some whole new empire that just shows up from like another galaxy and is just like, hey, we're here to beat the crap out of both of you. You know, your little war doesn't mean anything to us, right? And so I think that's what you're gonna see in the same way. You're gonna have some new, you know, big bad boy of death come in and just be like, Nagash, whatever, bro. You know, not that he's as powerful as Nagash, just for whatever reason, he could be quite weak. He could just be immune to Nagash's BS, right? And that would make him potent. My hope would be that we got. I would love to see sort of a very unusual dead, like a dead infused with an alien magic of one of the planes, right? So that you got something where you got like metal dead, like sort of like say they were from Shimon, the Michael
You mean
Jackson
like
plane.
death metal?
I mean like death metal. I would love to see some death metal. And I'm not talking like Necrons. I don't want to see Necrons come in. That's not what I mean. But like they could have like metal bits to them, still be largely organic, but have like metal bits worked into them, or be more thoughtful or organized or something like that because they're rigid. They're from the plane of metal. There's lots
Or
of
they could actually just be Necrons.
or they could actually just be Necron. Sure, yeah, that'd be fine too. But like, yeah, it does. You could pick any plane. If you don't like my metal example, pick your favorite plane, right? And have that make them immune because they're not animated solely by the winds of Shaiish, right? They're animated. They have this other magic that makes them immune to Nagash's control. Easy.
Yeah, I don't see that happening without a major campaign attached to it.
Sure. So, yeah, okay, cool.
And I see a lot of major campaigns, like there's a lot of hooks that they've written into the lore, and so
you can have multiple factions stirring up in a campaign, right? Like this could be the third party, a sort of spoiler faction that comes in the middle of the main two protagonist antagonist fight, right? That's where they would belong. They shouldn't be. Something like this shouldn't be the main focus. It's not big enough. You know what I mean?
Yep.
All right. So that's death. But again, what do you think is going to happen with death? I think my money is on a brand new thing. Like totally new style of death. I really believe that. But I want to know what you think out there. So we'll be interested. All right, let's turn from death to destruction. Okay. What's coming for destruction? We got our Iron Jaws. What's coming for destruction, Tom? Looking into the crystal ball, what do you see?
More than any other sub-faction right now, unless they completely blindside us. And this is not me wish listing as much as I would like to wish list. I think that Spider Fang are up in the top, in some of the highest likelihood of actual releases.
And do you think that's going to be built like the Iron Jaws, where they take a few of the existing things, like the Arachnarok and so on, and build out from there and just inherit these other units?
Yep. And I don't even know if we'll keep Spider Riders. I mean, I think we will. But the reality is that we don't need Spider Riders. And they could add a single other sprue to the Arachnarok and get an actual like war boss champion for the Arachnarok. So how we've talked about how they've like revitalized kits. Yeah, they would just need to throw in another sprue to actually get like a big boss, like an actual like warrior on an Arachnarok, because that was one of my complaints initially. So they could revitalize that kit, force people to rebuy that kit for those that already have it. And then we have the Scuttlings that have cropped up in Silver Tower.
Yep, that to me is the reason why I think you're right. Those Scuttlings, those seem so random. Yep. To me, the reason they're there, okay, is
it's the wet appetites.
Well, no, you're wrong way around. That's what they will do.
Okay.
They're there because the modelers were working on something for a Spider Fang release, right? And the person who was like when they're putting together Silver Tower, they're like, well, we need another enemy. What do you have far along in the process, right, that we could pull in? Because we just need any monsters in the storm. And they went over
design article. Good.
Yeah, go ahead. No, please.
I was like, in the design article, they said that goblins were a common part of dungeon crawls, and they wanted to call out to that aspect of the dungeon crawl, and so that's why the forest goblins. But they wanted something different, something mutated in Zinchi, which is why we got what we got. I don't know if I believe that explanation, but that's the explanation that we've gotten.
I think it can't be that right. Like that's what I think there.
Yeah. No, and that's fair. I think that with that, the lore is also set up. So right now, you've kind of called out the reality that destruction is not, it's a side player. It's not a major player. It's not scary. Right now we have order and chaos. Like they are the two big forces that are slugging it out.
Yep.
I think that I think a storm is brewing in the lore for Destruction to move on to the scene as a major player. If you read through the lore, flip through the Destruction book, and particularly go look at the entry for the Spider Fang, a new named character gets introduced called Spittlegit. Spittlegit is a goblin shaman that basically is uniting all of the Spider Fang tribes. Okay, and one of his major goals is that he is weaving what they call the world web, not the World Wide Web.
He's inventing the internet, right? Okay.
He is the Al Gore of this world. No, he is. It's called the. I'm going to pull it up real quick because it's basically a web in between. It's called the realm web, and it is a web that connects all of the different realms. So in those in between places.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. So they would be able to travel all over the place.
Yes. And so so it talks about the first strands of the realm web are beginning to be woven in the lore. And so my anticipation is that it's going to be the forest goblins that are going to create the venue for the invasion of all the other realms by when a great wall is called by Gordrak. Gotcha.
Well, my feeling is along the same, only it is also related to Gordrak and what happens there. Gordrak's the Fist of Gork, right? So at some point they're going to pay off the other half of that. And they're going to have the Fist of Mork show up, right, as part of a faction. Whether it be in this Spider Fang or a second one, you're going to see the cunning side, right, of the Fist of Mork show up. And
I think that's the spiders. Like they're sneaky. They're the ones that are launching the plan to get people into the realms.
Right. Yep, and that does align rather well. I think the other thing you're going to see is I think you will eventually see some kind of new ogre release. Okay. But it will not look anything like the existing ogres. What you're going to see...
Do you think it'll be Destruction?
Yeah, there'll be Destruction. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Like, the reason why I asked is the Ogroid was a Chaos.
Yes, he was a Chaos, which is why I don't think he's the template for the go forward. Okay?
Yep.
I think he's clearly some kind of weird mutated Zinchi Chaos Ogre. He's this big special creature for the Silver Tower. He's very wrapped up in the nature of the Silver Tower, right? Having a Minotaur in a maze type of creature, like a Minotaur type creature in a maze, is pretty classic, right? So I don't think he's the template. I think you'll see something like I think that when it comes down to it, with the ogres, you're going to get a totally new take on ogres where they don't base it on anything in particular that really exists, except maybe in the same way the Fire Slayers like hearken to the normal Slayers, but aren't really Slayers, right? They're not really like the old Slayers. I think what you'll get is a totally new, like, sort of beast theme infused ogres. Okay.
Yep.
That are very seated in the plane of Gur, that have, and so you'll be able to like hearken back to, the hunter and those kind of like, and those things, but it will be at best in the same way the Fire Slayers are more of an echo or an homage to the Slayers. These ogres will be an homage to like the hunter and that kind of thing. It's
so
not
the
like
honorable
actually drawn from that.
So for this plot that I've kind of spun out of the chaos, or of them being able to, like, the key to destruction is them actually having the ability to invade other realms.
Right.
That's what has to move them into the major player, is actually to give them mobility. To pour forth their numbers. So the honorable mention goes to the ogres, because we've begun to see this with their maul portals.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's the other half of this potentially.
Yep. Though I think the way that those books are written, they give the writers a fair amount of leeway to just kind of play with stuff. And so I never like, I don't think you can read too many rules or releases into what the authors write in little details like that in the book, because my understanding of how those authors work is they give the authors like the beats of the story they've got to hit and say, you know, this needs to happen here, this needs to happen here, try to include this type of character, this should be the ultimate payoff. And then you go from there for the most part. Like, I'm sure they get, you know, they work through an outline and gets approved, standard process. But my point is, I don't think they really micromanage. I'm sure they reject, but I'm sure when they let the author be creative is my point, right?
Yeah. The other thing that I'm going to add, by the way, just to qualify this about my words are hard. My Spider Fang predictions is that I actually don't think it's the next campaign. I think that we're going to get more hints of it mainstreamed into the campaign book. We'll see a couple of events in the next campaign that runs this next year. I suspect this next year is going to be Elves and Slaanesh related, or Tzeentch. Let me say this. I think it's going to be Tzeentch related with probably some degree of the Elves. And I think that that'll be our campaign in the immediate future. And then I think we're going to begin to see like hints that not all is right in the underworld with like realm web stuff bumping. So that basically like it's the setup for the campaign beyond. And then suddenly that's the big campaign that the curtain gets pulled back and every realm has been infested by and the way of it has been paved for the hordes of destruction.
Sure. So you kind of mentioned it there already. So let's move right to them. Chaos. What is the future of Chaos?
I believe the rumors that this is the year of Tzeentch.
Okay. So there's a big Tzeentch release. I think that like we already had a pretty sizable Tzeentch release in Warhammer Quest, right? We got like the new Zangors, we got another Gaunt Summoner, like, you know, there have been some Tzeentch model releases, let's not kid ourselves, in the Silver Tower. But you're saying definitely more coming beyond that.
Yeah, I think that I think that Tzeentch will be front and center in the new campaign. And what I'm guessing is that Tzeentch is going to be the impetus behind the return of Slaanesh. And the reason why I say that is because Tzeentch is the like master magic and the stereotypical like schemer. And Tzeentch will always do better with more players on the field.
More people to manipulate, yes.
Exactly. And so I think Tzeentch, one of Tzeentch's goals will be to get Slaanesh back out on the field as a distraction. And I think that messing with the elves and his like the cunning and the intelligence of the elves and the magic of the elves matches and pairs well with Tzeentch, is what I would say.
Sure. No, I agree. I think that definitely within the next year, you've got a Slaanesh release. We've heard it rumored. I think you're going to have plenty of Tzeentch releases. I'm still betting on my Shark Surfers of some kind. That's coming. So the Manta Ray Surfers, look for them in your local stores coming soon. But I mean, to me, I don't know what the rest of the Tzeentch releases will be, but I suspect you'll get a few fill outs, right? I think you'll see some of like this stuff re-released as its own standalone, right?
Yep.
But that's a gimme. That's not really new. I think you'll see probably another new Tzeentch demonic creature of some kind, and probably a few mortal Tzeentch-y things, specifically mortal Tzeentch-y things, right? Because the Tzeentch mortal section, like the Tzeentch mortal section's pretty thin as it stands right now, really. So I think that Arcanite faction could really just blow up, and they'll use what they've set up in the Silver Tower to expand that out the rest of the way, right?
Certainly. So to qualify, let me just add another thing regarding the campaign. I had said that so I envision this campaign happening the next, 3 books out. You got to remember that we actually had the main compendium for Age of Sigmar launch in the summer in late July, and our first Realm Gate War dropped in late August.
Yep.
Early September. I think that what we're going to see is, I think the summer campaign and the General's Compendium and all that, like the summer mapping tracking campaign, is all going to be wrapped up in the Realm of Life together. Okay? And that's why I think that it's not the campaign, because I think what's going to happen is that's going to be a self-contained event, and people are going to be able to contribute and quote-unquote shape the world, just like we've always asked, but it's not going to change the actual outcome of what the next campaign is. So they're going to change focus in the next camp to a different part of the Mortal Realms.
Yes,
so
and then they'll come back to what was affected, because the reality is they have to have releases, and like we can't be so stupid as to think it would affect a release a month later. Like,
right, they have to have writing time.
Yeah, it takes a year to minimum, bare mins, to develop one of these products from inception to shelf. Like, if the campaign ends in September, they can't just be like, oh, hey, here you go. Great, here's who won. Next campaign is the results of this, right? And by the way, a year is being very favorable.
And so, especially if there's model releases associated with these factions. And so I really, and the notice that with the campaigns, almost all the faction stuff is campaign related. And so I think that we're going to get the summer campaign. We're going to get this dose of Realm of Life with the Force Elves and the Sylvaneth. I think that then, and that's why I don't think Nurgle will be front and center for chaos.
Don't go to Order too quick. We're going to come back to Order. Don't worry. But
no, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's why I don't think Nurgle is going to be front and center. Is because they're going to be part of this Realm of Life thing. They've been part of this Realm of Life the entire time.
Right.
And that's going to get decided this summer. But for the new campaign, the 3 books that I'm hypothesizing are coming out next year, I'm guessing that there's Tzeentch that's going to reintroduce. Tzeentch, it's going to reintroduce Tzeentch, it's going to reintroduce Slaanesh. And let me go out on go tinfoil hat just one step farther.
Okay.
I think that you're going to open next. I think you're going to open next year for the following campaign with a Skaven invasion. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure where to go with them. Let me say one thing on the Slaanesh thing real quick. Let me just get this out on Slaanesh before we move on to the Skaven. Okay. Slaanesh will have a completely new, refreshed completely model line. Yep. When they re-release, all that old stuff is going to get booted out the door. As much as I love it, it is all aged. The Keeper is beyond ridiculous and stupid. The Fiends are ancient and terrible. The Daemonettes are an old sculpt that no one's really that in love with. It's a generation away from the ones people love. There's just nothing great in that model line anymore, right? And if they're good, like if the God's going to be removed and come back, you wouldn't have to do that much if you think about it, right? It's right in line with the way they've been releasing factions. You've got like an infantry, a monstrous thing, and so on and so forth, right? So you could do a completely new punch out of those demons. Now, the only thing I'll say is that it's tricky because that has to overlap into 40K in some degree if they actually 86 the old models, right? Right. Because all of those things are perfectly valid 40K. I don't think they will. I think the old stuff stays and they get a completely new Slaanesh faction.
Yep. I agree. It'll be a new. By the way, it'll be a new Mortal Slaanesh faction. Because you got to remember that Slaanesh only has a demon faction right now. Like they don't actually have their own separate mortal faction.
Well, they do. There are mortals in the combined Slaanesh.
Well, but yes, that's true. I guess it is combined. Yeah. I still think that you're going to see an elf Slaanesh faction. I really think that's the design direction that they go when you see Slaanesh drop. But real briefly, back to the Skaven. I don't know what is in store for them. I don't suspect a lot other than like an occasional sub faction here, like Clan Sky or whatnot. But I think that what we're going to see though is I think we'll see that first campaign book of not this campaign cycle, but the following campaign cycle will be an invasion of Skaven. And I think that what that'll do is that'll actually herald what you'll find out by the end of that book is that there's an invasion of Skaven because the tunnels that they've made in the inner realms, how it says they've snuck into all the realms. Yep. My guess is they're going to get driven out of their hole by the spiders that are creeping through. And so I think that I do that's what I'm saying. Like I think that next campaign that following year will be a destruction campaign, and it'll look like an initial launch of chaos, and then I think the reveal will be that it's destruction moving through those tunnels.
Well, what I'll say is this. Skaven actually has the easiest release if they wanted to do something. Okay? Because you just introduce a new clan. That's it. It's that easy. Like Skaven has been sub-factioned in the way in the modern world, like in the modern Age of Sigmar world, forever. Right? So like we have our 4 big clans, introduce a 5th. Like a new clan rises to preeminence. The nature of the Skaven is such that they're always infighting and killing each other. Sure. Like the idea that one of these clans could fall or lose some ground, maybe not be wiped out, but fall in preeminence, and a new clan could arise is more or less exactly what the story's all about, right? Like that's what every minor clan is trying to do. And now that they're not tied to the same resources of the old world, where Pestilence had very specific resources in Skyr, and Clan Molder had access to Troll Blight or whatever it was, the big chaos hell pit that let them mutate things. It would be very easy for some new clan to find some new BS out there in the plains and just whammo bammo rise to ascendancy. And so to me, Skaven are an easy pack. Like sometime in the next 2-3 years, like I think this is far out, but sometime in the next 2-3 years, you're going to see a new Skaven clan get introduced, right? Welcome to Clan Verma Score de Borgahord. And there you go. They do this, and they'll have a new thing, whatever that thing is, right? And you'll go from there. I think they'll stick. Yeah, I think they'll stick around in Chaos because there's no other place for them to go. Bonus points for the out there play if they somehow got booted from Chaos and ended up in Destruction, right? That if if anybody was going to leap factions around, like if we got to a faction shake,
Skaven would be it. Yes,
Skaven would get out of Chaos because they never really belonged there. Like the Horned Rat will make a play to take over the Chaos Gods, fail, they'll boot him.
It'll be like, I'm out. Yep.
He'll boot him, and he'll end up hanging out with in Destruction, just looking to mess stuff up, right? So if anybody was going to faction jump, they'd be the ones to do it. Because they've always been like looking for a home, and then they'll be in Destruction for like a little while, and then whatever, just do their own thing sometime later. They'll switch to Death and really shock everybody. All right, so let's close this out with Order, Tom. There's so much. What is the future of Order in the Age of Sigmar?
I have no damn idea.
All right, well, I've got some ideas. I've got some.
Yeah. Let's go with yours first. Yeah.
Okay. One, we know the elf release coming. Maybe it could be elf alone, maybe Sylvaneth and elf, both tomes, whatever. We're going to see a lot of tree-y elves coming very soon to a store near you, right?
Yes.
The Gugu elves, the Ulugu elves are going to happen. Like that Tenebrous Shard and that Mistweaver Sisei, those are happening. So like tuck in, the Shadow Elves are coming, right? We know this. There's just no question. They've been rumored for so long. Seeing these 2 models get spoiled, right? Like this is some part of this represents the future. That's not an accident. Beyond that, I absolutely think that the elves are one of those factions where I don't know that they need a lot more than that. If there was going to be anything they will do, they'll build out a Phoenix thing.
Yep.
Because the Phoenix thing is interesting. They've still done the Phoenix motif. It's in line with Age of Sigmar. It's primed for a sub-faction to build on in the same way they did Ironjawz, right?
Yeah, and if they did, yeah, exactly. And there's only a little bit in it right now, so they could easily build it out into its own thing.
Yep.
I think that if they do, it wouldn't surprise me if they tie them with like the light elves, with like the burning phoenixes and stuff like that, and like
then you'll get the light and the shadow elves, and it'll be a mirror of the old high and dark elves, right? As George Lucas told us, it's like poetry, it rhymes. So there you go.
Yeah, and by the way, all of that would fit with a Tzeentch reintroducing Slaanesh campaign. Like all of that maps exactly with what we've predicted for these other factions.
Yep. Order, you're going to get a Devoted of Sigmar release. I wasn't sure about that until they made that Excelsior War Priest and gave him the Devoted of Sigmar keyword. Okay? He's what pushed me over the edge, because they, to me, tipped their hand right there to say, look, they also mentioned this sort of offhandedly in a little snide comment on Facebook of like, you know, they might have some stuff. Like it was, you know, wasn't anything significant, but they kind of said a little something. To me, it's got the name of the god in it, and it's an anemic half faction. That's not going to last, right? It's literally got the name of the freaking game in its faction name, right? Yep. Like, that's not going to be an anemic faction forever. So you're absolutely going to see the like a Devoted of Sigmar release. And I think that's where you'll get, that's how they're going to bring any kind of normal human warriors on the order side, by the way, fully into this.
Notice that he also has the celestial and the human keywords.
Yes, exactly.
The celestial being the keyword that the Stormcast have.
Well, so did several Empire characters.
Well, they like yes.
A lot of the Empire, not a lot, but several of the Empire people also inherited that celestial keyword, right? So yes, what you'll see is these human celestials. I think the other thing you'll get from Order is we're going to get a pop-up new faction like the Red Slayers, probably more significantly down the line. This is to me in like the 3-year time frame. There's going to be like an uncovered kingdom out in the realms that never lived in Azerheim, right? That they find. And they're going to show up and have their own weird culture, and like it'll give them a chance to play with a completely new human aesthetic, right? They can look like anything. They'll again have some kind of echo to some real world aesthetic or whatever, just like when the Carrick acolytes came out and looked somewhat Phoenician or whatever, right? You'll see the same thing here. They'll echo some kind of real world culture. In all honesty, it would be an amazing chance to get a sort of Asian or whatever the proper term is, like an Eastern theme in, right? You could have like this sort of golden army theme of that they had lived out there in seclusion, and you could hearken that same way that like China historically secluded itself for a while and was and then boom, they, you know, came out into the world. It's like poetry, man. It rhymes, I'm telling you. And then, you know, you just, that would be, to me, that's an aesthetic that's always been lacking. There's been a lot of people calling for it. And it would be, they could knock it out of the park with their current sort of modeling technology and just have this incredible, again, doesn't need to be big, just an incredible release, tightly focused, 5-6 kits with some multi-parts and a clan pack, and call it a day. And suddenly you've got this whole new Order faction showing up, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I'll tell you who I don't think is going to get anything. I don't like, you're going to see the metal dwarves. We've mentioned those. Like, you're going to see that second dwarven faction, right? The metal dwarves at some point in time this year. That's also been rumored heavily for a while. I think you'll see the other, it's just the other side. We saw I don't remember the two names of the gods. Grimnir. We saw the Grimnir. Now we need the Grungi. Is that right?
No, Grungi was, yes, that's correct.
Okay. So like, that's true. We'll follow that. To me, once that's done, once we've got our Grungi metal dwarves, who I think are all going to look kind of like Iron Drakes, basically, right? I think the Iron Drake is going to lay the template for them in the same way that they built the brutes and the knobs and, you know, Iron Jaws off of kind of the Black Orcs. They'll build the new dwarves off of the Iron Drakes. To me, what they will do the same thing with dwarves, and then I don't think they'll get anything for a long time. Like that will be it for a while. In the same way that, like, I don't think Lizardmen are getting anything for a long time to come. Though, here's what I'll say. I would not put it past them post 3 years out. So when we get all these normal beats for the first 3 big campaigns down, if everything's still humming along, I wouldn't put it past them to do, that's when they start bringing in the crazy, right?
Yeah.
When they start doing these little sub factions where we get like a new weird take on Lizardmen 4 years down the line, right?
Yeah, I get
it. Where they just go completely off the rails into like the Slan setup. They've established a new breeding program in their weird magical spaceships, and now they've got real troops and they're marching out new weird dino monsters. You know, like it would just be the easiest thing in the world. But to me, the map for the next year to 3 years is 2 human factions, the other dwarves, and then the 3 elven sub factions. That would be my hard prediction on the order side, which is a lot of order if you think about it, right? Like that's a lot of traction in that bit. But we've got to show them expanding out from Azerheim, right? The problem is right now we have this very unified culture. This is
the realm of Sigmar, or the Age of Sigmar. Like this is his ascendance. Yep.
So we've got to watch what happens when they start taking back territory, right? Because it's not, if the story doesn't move beyond the good guys have 1 realm and the bad guys have basically 6, and then Death holds 1, right? Just because like Nagash more or less has Shaiish on lock. Yes, I know there's Chaos there. Yes, I know there's Skaven there, but in the end, that's his place. If it doesn't move past that at some point and we see growth from that, then it's going to be a failure of sort of the narrative, right?
Yep.
All right. So we only have a few minutes left, but I want to touch on a couple questions. We hit a couple. We hit a lot of these. Okay, here we go. Will all the old lines be retired in 3 years?
Define old lines.
Pre-Age of Sigmar model kits.
No. I think we'll see tons of old model kits. That said, I think that they are going to be aggressive on those things that they are phasing out.
Yep. I would agree. By the way, Scott R says he says will small one-day tournaments run by enthusiasts build a greater community, maybe like his upcoming tournament that he's hosting. So see Scott R's Google Plus profile for information on that. I'll post his thing down in the links so that people can check that out. There you go. Okay. Scarlock the Wanderer says, will Cetra return? God, I hope so. Yes. But I would put it out in the like post 3 year time. Like they need to get into the crazy phase. To me, 4 or 5 years from now, if everything's still going, like they don't have hard plans for that stuff right now. Right? They've got like a 3 year roadmap of cycle times and, where people are like sketching out art for something that far down the line. Like that's the phase it's in, right? They just have artists like making stuff, some of which will eventually become something, most of which will be nothing.
Right.
So like in the crazy phase, they had some artist, like in the past couple of months, some artist in GW, somebody was like, give me 5 or 6 pieces of art on a new take on like a Cetra Tomb King army, what it would look like. Not that means they're going to do it. Just some artist somewhere got tasked with doing some concept art on that. That's what that looks like, and as much as they've thought about it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, within 3 years, Total War, Age of Sigmar? Sure. Like, could they do a Total War, Age of Sigmar? Sure. They will keep aggressively expanding their digital rights because it makes them a shitload of money and is hugely popular and brings people into the game, and it's win, 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 win. So, yep, you're going to see a lot of that. And then
I don't know if I agree with that, by the way. Thinking about that. I think you'll see an End Times happen before you'll see Age of Sigmar.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying like definitely AOS within 3 years, but definitely AOS eventually. Okay. Sure. There will be AOS video games and stuff like that, even if it's not Total War. They're going to get aggressive with that stuff.
No, I agree with that.
Okay. Let's see. Will there be, Stu Gibson says, will there be an entirely new race added to the game? Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. 100% yes. Within a 5 year frame, I would see 2 of them. Will it be fish people? No, it will not. But those fish people.
Hey, they joked around about it. They joked in the most recent White Dwarf, they joked around about adding fish people with.
I know they joked. They're not going to do it. I'll put my flag there. If I'm wrong, I'll eat that word. That's fine. I don't think they're going to do it. Now,
okay,
not fish people. Could they do like merfolk? Sure, they could do merfolk, but I mean that very differently. Okay,
yeah,
fish people is like weird Kuatoa with bug eyes and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Merfolk are like mer people. Could they do that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Sure. Traditionally in Magic, when they got rid of the merfolk and added in the like octopus people, there was a riot.
Fallen Empires, or no?
No, it was later than that, but sure. Yeah, they like Because there were still merfolk and fallen empires.
Right, there was, but there's also like the cephalopod people.
Yeah, the
like
cephalopod people really
crab
came into their own in like Onslaught. But anyways,
Okay, got it.
yeah.
But, yeah, I'm thinking crab people. I'm sorry, not the cephalopods.
Well, you got to watch out for the crab people. They're always trying to take over. All right. So there you go. That's all the questions. I think, Tom, there's a lot of interesting times to come. So there we go.
Lots of hope.
Absolutely. I'm excited. All right. So sadly, that brings us to the end of our time. But we thank you all, so many people, for joining.
Can I say a final word?
Yes.
For those of you that are wanting to do the GW Dream Army contest, you have 2 days. 2 days to place your order with GW of $85 or more and submit a 500-word essay with pictures, if you would like, to potentially win an Army of Your Dreams. So if you guys are interested, make sure to get it done. You have 2 days. Mine's in. I'm doubling down on my prophecy of the Spider Fang goblins, and I've pitched my Spider Fang army, my vision of the invasion as it's going to happen and the army that's going to come out of that, and so I'm hoping to be in their head as to where they're designing right now. We'll see, but yeah. So if you have a dream army, make sure that you get that submitted in the next 2 days.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. We certainly appreciate it. As always, don't forget to put your comments on our predictions. What did you think of our predictions? What do you think is coming? We want to know. Put it down below. Get those comments in there. Let's start the discussion. But of course, as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.